I remember exactly the day a patient walked into my office carrying a smile that didn't match what I was seeing in her lab results. She was excited. She had lost 18 pounds in less than 2 months without changing anything about her diet, without exercising. For her, it was an unexpected gift. For me, it was one of the most concerning signs a doctor can observe in a patient with uncontrolled blood sugar. I have spent more than 2 decades following patients with metabolic disorders, diabetes, insulin resistance, and all the consequences that glycemic dysregulation can generate in the human body. If this kind of content matters to you, if you want to understand what is really happening inside your body, not just the surface-level explanations, subscribe to this channel right now, because what I am about to show you in the next few minutes is something most people only find out about when it is already too late. And before we go further, I want to ask you something. Have you ever seen someone lose weight rapidly while having high blood sugar? Do you know what their glucose levels were at the time? Leave that in the comments below, because your experience might help someone else watching this today recognize a warning sign they didn't even know existed. Now, let me take you through what is actually happening inside the body, because this is where the story gets complicated, and where the confusion begins for most people. The majority of people learn at some point that sugar makes you gain weight, that insulin stores fat, that eating too many carbohydrates leads to weight gain over time, and that is true, but it is only part of the story. The other part, the one that very few people know, is what happens when blood glucose rises to extreme levels, when the system begins to collapse, when the body stops functioning within the parameters we recognize as normal. Let's start from the beginning, because understanding the progression is essential to understanding what truly happens in the body. When a person begins to develop glycemic dysregulation, that early stage when glucose starts rising, the pancreas responds by producing more insulin to compensate, and the body begins to accumulate fat more easily. The effect that is observed is weight gain. Elevated insulin acts as a storage hormone. It pushes glucose into cells, converts the excess into fat, and blocks the breakdown of existing lipid reserves. The result, over time, is the progressive accumulation of body fat, especially in the abdominal region, associated with a growing difficulty losing weight even with diet and exercise. This is the picture that affects the vast majority of people with prediabetes or type 2 diabetes in the early stages. It is the most common presentation in clinical practice, and it is, paradoxically, what creates the illusion that diabetes does not cause weight loss. Because in this phase, the weight goes up. But what happens when the situation advances? When the dysregulation goes untreated, when years pass, when glucose stops fluctuating slightly above normal and begins living in dangerous territory. This is where the physiology makes a turn that surprises even those who are not deeply familiar with the mechanisms of human metabolism. When blood glucose rises to very high levels, we are talking about values that can exceed 250, 300, 400 milligrams per deciliter or more, the body enters a completely different state. Insulin, which was previously trying to compensate by producing more, begins to fail, either because the pancreas can no longer produce enough or because the cells have become so resistant that even large amounts of insulin cannot fulfill their function. The result is always the same. Glucose cannot enter the cells. Hold that image for a moment, because it is powerful and it needs to be clear. The blood is literally overflowing with sugar. If you could look inside the veins of that patient, you would find a concentration of glucose that is toxic to tissues, to blood vessels, to nerves. And at the same time, the cells of that same patient are starving. They are deprived of energy. They are sending distress signals. It is like being surrounded by water and dying of thirst. The nutrient exists, it is present, but it is completely inaccessible. When the body detects that its cells are not receiving energy, it activates an emergency protocol. This protocol has existed for millions of years in our biology, shaped by evolution to keep us alive during periods of scarcity. The body interprets the lack of intracellular energy as a survival situation and begins searching for fuel in other places. The first place it accesses is the fat reserves. Adipose tissue begins to be mobilized, fatty acids are released into the bloodstream, and the body attempts to convert fat into energy to supply the starving cells. This is why people with decompensated diabetes begin to lose weight. Not because they are healthy, not because they found a solution, but because the body is burning itself. And the process does not stop at fat. When lipid reserves are not sufficient, or when the state of energy deprivation deepens, the body begins to break down muscle mass. Structural proteins are dismantled, converted into substrates that the liver transforms into glucose. A glucose that, ironically, also cannot enter the cells, perpetuating the cycle. The loss of muscle mass in a picture of decompensated diabetes is one of the most serious signs a clinician can observe. It indicates that catabolism is dominating the entire metabolism. But there is still a third mechanism that contributes to this weight loss, one that very few people know about. It is what happens in the kidneys when glucose rises to extreme levels. The kidneys function as a sophisticated filter. They continuously filter the blood, reabsorb what the body needs, including glucose, and eliminate the excess through urine. But this reabsorption process has a limit. There is a point called the renal threshold for glucose, generally around 180 milligrams per deciliter, above which the kidneys simply cannot reabsorb all the filtered glucose. What exceeds that threshold leaves the body in the urine. This has a name, glycosuria, and it has a very concrete consequence. The body is eliminating calories every single day. Every gram of glucose that passes into the urine is energy that the body captured from food and simply discarded. It is like filling a bucket with a hole in the bottom. No matter how much the person eats, part of that fuel is being lost continuously. Along with the glucose goes water. Glucose in the urinary filtrate drags water along with it through osmosis, generating that characteristic symptom that any physician recognizes immediately, polyuria, the excessive increase in urinary volume. The patient urinates frequently, in large volumes, and becomes progressively dehydrated. That dehydration, in turn, triggers another mechanism. Intense thirst, polydipsia, that feeling that no matter how much the person drinks, the mouth stays dry and the body keeps asking for more. And there is yet another disturbing paradox. While the body loses energy through urine, while it burns fat and muscle to survive, the brain receives signals that there is not enough fuel available, and it sends the signal it sends in any situation of scarcity: hunger. An intense, constant hunger that does not go away even after eating. This symptom also has a name: polyphagia. It is the classic triad of decompensated diabetes, polyuria, polydipsia, and polyphagia, that we study in medical school, and that, when they appear together in a patient, demand urgent attention. And at the center of all of this, happening silently, weight loss. Rapid, unexplained to those who don't know the mechanisms, often interpreted by the person themselves as something positive. After all, who doesn't want to lose weight? This is where the most real danger of this situation lies. And this is where I need to be very direct with you. When a person with very high blood glucose begins to lose weight without trying, that weight loss is not a gift from the metabolism. It is not the body finding balance. It is the body signaling that it is in collapse, that it cannot use the fuel that exists in the blood, that it is burning its own structures, fat, muscle, protein, in an attempt to keep essential functions alive. This is a situation that, if not recognized and treated, can evolve into serious complications, including diabetic ketoacidosis, a metabolic emergency state that can be fatal. This picture is especially common in type 1 diabetes, where the autoimmune destruction of the pancreatic beta cells leads to an absolute insulin deficiency from the very beginning. But it can also occur in advanced, untreated type 2 diabetes, when the pancreas exhausts its compensatory capacity after years of overload. In both cases, weight loss associated with extreme hyperglycemia is a warning sign that requires immediate medical evaluation. Many patients I have seen over the years arrived at my office or at the emergency room in this state, without understanding what was happening. Some had lost 20, 30, even 40 pounds in just a few months. Family members thought they were getting healthier. The patients themselves were sometimes excited about the scale. And behind that weight loss was a metabolism entering collapse, a failing pancreas, starving cells and kidneys working beyond their limit. If you or someone close to you is experiencing rapid and unexplained weight loss along with symptoms such as excessive thirst, frequent urination in large volumes, constant hunger that does not resolve, intense weakness, or blurred vision, this needs to be investigated urgently. These signs together can indicate that the body is going through exactly what I have described here. If you've noticed unexplained weight loss along with signs of high blood sugar, it's critical to understand what your body is going through. We've placed a complete guide in the first link in the description to help you recognize the warning signs and take the right steps. Do not ignore these symptoms. Do not wait for them to pass on their own. Now, I want you to have a clear and organized view of what we have discussed, because this contrast is essential to understanding the behavior of your own body. When glucose is mildly elevated, in that stage of prediabetes or early type 2 diabetes, insulin is high, trying to compensate. In that scenario, the body accumulates fat, weight tends to rise, and losing weight becomes difficult even with effort. The metabolism is in a state of excessive storage. When glucose rises to extreme levels and insulin stops functioning adequately, either due to insufficient production or intense resistance, the picture changes completely. Now the body cannot use the sugar that is in the blood. It enters survival mode. It breaks down fat and muscle. It loses calories and water through urine. And the result is rapid weight loss that may appear positive, but is, in reality, a physiological emergency signal. The same problem, dysregulated glucose, can generate completely opposite effects depending on the stage it has reached. This is one of the reasons why continuous monitoring and medical follow-up are irreplaceable, because symptoms can be deceiving, because what looks good can be dangerous, and because the body rarely asks for help clearly. It asks for help through signs that need to be interpreted by someone who understands the mechanisms. And what should we pursue, clinically, when the goal is to treat this picture? It is not simply a matter of lowering the blood glucose number. Any physician working with metabolism knows that the real goal is deeper. It is to restore the proper functioning of the entire system. That means improving insulin sensitivity, so that the hormone can once again fulfill its function of opening the doors of the cells to glucose. It means allowing the fuel circulating in the blood to actually reach where it needs to go. It means avoiding both excessive storage, which leads to fat gain, and extreme cellular deprivation, which leads to pathological weight loss and catabolism. Real metabolic balance exists at neither extreme. Not at the mildly elevated glucose that causes the body to accumulate fat, and not at the extremely high glucose that causes the body to enter emergency mode. It exists at the point where cells have adequate access to energy, where insulin functions as it should, where the metabolism operates within a range that allows the body to function, repair itself, and maintain its composition in a healthy way. In the first link in the description, you will find a step-by-step guide to stabilize blood sugar levels, avoid dangerous spikes, and protect your body from both unhealthy weight gain and sudden weight loss. It is material developed with clinical care, designed specifically for those who are trying to understand what is happening inside their own body. Before I close, I need to say one final thing, and I want this to be remembered with absolute clarity. Losing weight with very high blood sugar is not a sign of health. It is not the body becoming more efficient. It is not the metabolism adjusting. It is the signal that the body has lost access to its primary source of energy and is burning its own structures to survive. It is the signal that something is profoundly wrong and requires attention. True metabolic balance, the kind that protects the heart, the kidneys, the nerves, the eyes, and body composition, only exists when glucose is kept within a controlled range. Not too high, not with extreme spikes, not left untreated for months or years. Controlled, monitored, taken seriously. This channel exists to bring this kind of knowledge to you, with depth and clinical responsibility. If today's content made sense to you, if it helped you understand something that felt confusing before, subscribe, because the next videos will continue this conversation about how the metabolism works, how to protect it, and how to make informed decisions about your health. And one more thing before you go, have you ever seen someone lose weight while their blood sugar was very high? Do you know what their glucose levels were? Leave that in the comments, because that experience, shared here, could be exactly what helps another person watching this video recognize a warning sign before it becomes a crisis.